Without further ado, on the Monty Show, what is going on with the College Football Super League? And let's get into it because there was a lot of controversy over the weekend. Ross Dellinger and others pronounced the College Football Super League dead, saying that administrators had told them it will never happen. I can tell you that's the exact opposite of what we're hearing. And I think one of the big question marks is what is the impact that the new college football playoff TV deal has had on the Super League? I think it's more than that because that's the big question. That's what everybody's talking about. Hey, you have this extension of the college football playoff for ESPN. Does that mean that the Super League is dead? I am telling you from multiple sources, the answer is no. It has always been an uphill climb, right? I think we always have known that building the God tier, the Super League, whatever you want to say, I think it's always been an uphill climb. But here's the truth. Whatever makes the top teams in college athletics more money is eventually going to happen. I think we know that. I do believe that the College Football Super League, call it what you want, it's going to happen. It is not a matter of if, but when. Here are the biggest challenges. I don't think there's any doubt getting all of the power players in college athletics, from TV to presidents, chancellors, athletic directors, and certainly football coaches in the same room to agree to do the same thing has always been, will always be the singular biggest challenge in making a college football Super League come to fruition. There's just no doubt about the fact that it's very difficult to get hundreds of men in a room and have them agree and have all of them say, yeah, you know what? I don't need to be the biggest voice in the room. I think that is always going to be the biggest challenge here. But I also think if it is better for their pocketbooks and if it is better for their legacies, it's going to happen. And there is no question that a Super League is better for their pocketbooks and better for their legacies, and it's going to happen. Now, I have talked to a lot of people in TV, and I think the thing that we have been told repeatedly by multiple sources is without a doubt that the major players in college TV, which would be ESPN, which would be CBS, which would be Fox, are all on board with making the College Football Super League happen. There is in no way, shape, or form a roadblock or a barrier put in place by the extension of the college football playoff. Just about everybody we talk to in TV has agreed with that sentiment. But the biggest question is, what's the timeline for the College Football Super League? I think there is an unknown timeline. Private money is ready to move on this today. That is not what's going to move the needle. What's going to move the needle is everybody getting together and deciding who is actually going to have creative control over whatever you want to call this, the College Football Super League. Because right now, the folks that have the private money also want to have the creative control. I think that is the single biggest barrier right now to making a College Football Super League happen in the next 5 years, which is why I think we've pretty regularly said it. If you go back on the channel and you watch our videos, I think the next 2 years is going to be one of the most important periods in time in the history of college football. And I say that because you have all of this instability in the ACC. I think that situation comes to a head. I believe, and I have continued to hear, that the ACC and Florida State are negotiating a graceful end to their blood feud that is going on. I believe that we are going to get some finality in the ACC within the next 6 to 10 months, would be my guess. I don't think that has any impact on the College Football Super League. I truly believe over the next 2 years, you are going to make or break the current incarnation, which would be 70 to 84 teams competing in a higher tier with the ability of the G5 to have access to that higher tier based on their ability to provide scholarships, NIL, and essentially facilitate a higher quality of existence for their athletes in football. That's what the criteria is going to be if you're in the G5 to get into the Super League. I think most people agree to that. The biggest question is, will private money be willing to put in their private money without having much of a say? And Jake, I think that is the single biggest barrier to making a college football super league happen.
Absolutely. And I think money has always been the defining factor in college athletics. You look around college athletics and you can see a variety of different situations being impacted by money. It's the famous Arizona example. You look at it at the conference level, and we're constantly talking about TV deal numbers, and so when it comes to this Super League concept, which I think would be very healthy for college football, it comes down to money. And again, when you talk about getting a bunch of men in a room, what are they concerned about? Well, how much is this going to pay me? How much access am I going to have? What's my ability to earn more if I win? What does all that look like? So I just think that money has always been a defining factor in college athletics, and I think that people don't put enough weight on it. It's easy as a national reporter to come out here and be like, oh yeah, the Super League is dead and nobody's interested, and it's dead on arrival. And the reality of the situation is nothing is alive or dead on arrival. It's an ongoing conversation, and that conversation revolves around money. And yes, there is private companies and private money ready to go on this, as they're ready to go on anything that's going to make them money. And that's the advantage football has. Football has proven success at making people more money. So now the only question is going to be, how long are we going to wait to do this? Because I believe it's an inevitability. I believe that this is going to happen because it has to happen. The college football playoff system we know today does not work for everybody. It does not allow enough access. It is a subjective process. They'll tell you, hey, there's a formula that we have to follow as a committee. We're weighing this and weighing that, and we're making decisions here and there. But the reality of the situation is, to get the biggest audiences, to get the most interest, you need every game and every situation to be decided on the field. And as part of that process, your ad partners can benefit. That's why this is an inevitability. And that's why eventually the college football playoff system we know today is going to die. And that's why I say, we can believe Ross if we want, and try to get on board with, hey, this is dead. The reality is it's never going to be dead, because the idea of people making money is alive and well every single day.
When you have this many dudes trying to hammer something out, I think you're going to have a very difficult path. It is going to be time consuming. It is going to be expensive. It is going to be frustrating. I think you are going to have administrators that are like, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. Like, you're going to have highs and you are going to have lows, and it is going to take time. I think the next 2 years is absolutely make or break if we are going to get a super league in the modern era. And I believe that we will. There's too many reasons to do it. There is not enough reasons not to do it.
Yeah, what's more expensive, doing it or not doing it? Because I can make a pretty compelling case that not doing this is more expensive. Not doing this limits people's access to making money.
And again, I go back to these lawsuits, and I think probably the most damaging one, I mean, they're all damaging. There's a lot of lawsuits out there with NIL and back pay for NIL that are going to cripple the NCAA's ability to operate. It is going to be billions of dollars. And I think that is going to be the real lever that you're going to pull to move guys off their spot for this college football super league, because anymore, the NCAA just, I think, recognizes that they can't win these fights. You're going to get new transfer regulations this week, supposedly, where they're going to allow you to transfer multiple times based on your academic standing. And you're not going to have to sit out. Well, why is that? Because we had a court decision that said you cannot prevent people from transferring and playing immediately. So now they're going to try and find ways to make that the way of the land.
Yeah.
The problem is that you are going to have real issues paying the bill that is coming due. And I think one of the things that we've never in this country been able to get away from is when the court says you owe the money, you owe the money. You're not getting away from the billions of dollars. And by some accounts, it could be $100 billion tab coming due when this legislation is done. If that is in fact the case, and if that is in fact what happens, college football, as you know it, is going to come to an end very quickly.
Yeah.
So do you really just think they're going to stop playing college football? That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. Why do you think Brett Yormark and other commissioners have been so aggressive in dividing their basketball and their football operations? Because you're trying to insulate. The problem is NIL is about college basketball and football. It's about all sports. That's why you're going to lose. I think it's hundreds of billions. I think it is a lot of money that is going to go out the door to pay settlements, because you're going to wind up paying athletes who were denied the right to make money on their name, image, and likeness. You're going to wind up paying them in arrears.
Yes.
You're going to owe a lot of former college athletes a lot of money. And I don't know how you pay that besides making more money. And that's exactly what a super league's about.
100%.
So I think it is not a matter of if. I think it is a matter of when, and really more how.
And I think this is one of the few concepts in college sports where, again, not to discredit Ross or anybody like Ross.
Not at all.
But I think that guys like Ross who have, the editorial standard they have and, the reputation they need to keep, they can't be seen to be saying, or having the conversation that we're able to have. And I think that's why you see them out on Twitter saying like, oh, well, it's dead and it takes these parties and yada, yada, yada. Okay, cool. Right. That's fine. But what we're not saying is that while it may be dead today, the conversation's ongoing. The conversation is evolving and growing. And I'm telling you, there are too many people who want this to happen for it not to happen.
I think there's too many administrators and power players in college athletics that are scared of these lawsuits for this not to happen. There is a real fear. I was talking to a cat yesterday about the fear, and that's the word he used, the fear around the outcome of these NIL lawsuits. And the idea that the debt that you will owe out of those lawsuits continues to grow, because time is not on your side. If you're the NCAA with these lawsuits, time is not on your side, because it's just getting more and more expensive. Money's getting more and more expensive.
Yeah.
And I think the longer you make, for instance, private money coming into the college football super league, do you think that money's going to get cheaper as time goes on? If you just have these dudes sit by the wayside and tell them they don't matter and tell them you don't want their money, do you think their money gets more expensive, or do you think they come to you with cheaper money? It's going to get more expensive, because where's your leverage going? Your leverage isn't going up. Every time there's a lawsuit you lose, your leverage goes down, because you need the money more and more.
Yes.
So I think it is simply a matter of when and how and what's going to be the tipping point. Because I think what's going to happen is some of these lawsuits in the next 12 to 18 months are going to come through, and you're just going to keep pushing more and more weight to one end of the scale. And I think eventually the tipping point happens.
Yes.
And this will, because I do think that ESPN really has a disproportionate amount of say in changing these contracts. Not only because they have the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12, but also because they have the college football playoff.
Yeah.
And if you are going to do a super league, you are going to have to renegotiate that college football playoff contract you just put pen to paper on, and you're going to have to renegotiate or invalidate your grant of rights. And if that's going to happen, somebody's going to have to make ESPN and ABC whole. And my guess is you do that through the Super League.
100%.
You do that by
Do you see how much
renegotiating their
flexibility-
deal.
Dude, do you see how much flexibility there is in this concept? Like how many ways there are to do business. That's the other thing with the college football playoff model. It's very rigid. There's not a lot of ways to kind of, meander your money through it. And I think that your average Joe football fan who doesn't watch every single game and doesn't like follow this stuff super closely doesn't understand that concept as well. They don't understand that, hey, the college football playoff, while it is expanded now, is still incredibly limiting. I mean, you're talking about 12 teams.
Yep,
Like,
totally
that's
agree.
it.
Make sure you download the Prize Picks app, prizepicks.com, or find it in your app store. Use the promo code Monty to open up your new account, make your first deposit, and Prize Picks will match your deposit up to 100% when you use the promo code Monty, M-O-N-T-Y. Monty is your promo code to get 100% deposit matching up to $100. That means you put in 10, they're going to give you 10. And trust me when I tell you, you can play Prize Picks for months on $20. As somebody who was down to my last nickel in Prize Picks just a few short, long weeks ago, and it feels like forever ago now. And as somebody who gets hot and then gets cold and usually has to find a couple of nickels to rub together on Prize Picks, you're better at Prize Picks than I am. Trust me when I say that. And I hope you are, because it is a good revenue stream. Hook it up, prizepicks.com, download the app. Make sure you use the promo code Monty, M-O-N-T-Y. Monty is your Prize Picks promo code. Chris E., hello. Super League won't work if they only have the Big Ten and the SEC, correct?
Yeah.
There is this idea that the Big Ten and the SEC are just going to walk away. They clearly don't have the ability to do that. When you sign the college football playoff, I think a lot of people don't understand the significant change that a new extension with ESPN and ABC brought to the college football playoff. It ended the ability of anybody to unilaterally act. There's no ability anymore. If you want to win the championship of college football, you have to go through the college football playoff.
Yeah.
So this idea that, the Big Ten and the SEC are just going to walk away, going to form their own thing, that's done. That's done. They need everybody to form everybody's thing anymore. That threat is gone now, right? I think you have to understand now that when you sign that extension with ESPN and ABC, you handed the TV industry control of college football.
Yep.
You handed it to them. This goes back to, tier 3 rights going away in these new grant of rights where you no longer had BYU TV broadcasting that one crappy game that you had. That doesn't happen anymore. Those things are gone. I don't know that you will ever see the Longhorn Network again. I don't know that you'll ever see an individual university have their own thing. I think it's much more like what Deion Sanders at Colorado does, Coach Prime on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Where he has his own reality series. That's what tier 3 rights look like now, where you have video series inside spring camp, inside fall ball, right? Like where you have, that Hard Knocks style production following around Alabama football, following around the Ohio State.
Right.
That's what you're going to see now, because you have to commit. You have no choice but to find alternative revenue streams. And anymore, you look at a lot of universities using YouTube as a revenue stream now.
As they should be.
Because you have to. It's the way things have to go. Dallin Sproul, hello. Dallin, good to see you. It's never going to happen due to TV deals and money. What do we expect? The TV companies to pay more? Probably not dead, but I don't see it happening, unfortunately. Relegation would be so cool. I think that the TV industry, it obviously is going to be the ones to decide what they're willing and unwilling to do. And I think that there's this belief in the sports world that Fox and ESPN are blood feud. It could not be further from the truth. They're partners on just about every sport. Okay, what are the major sports in the United States of America? The National Football League. ESPN and Fox are partners on the National Football League. Okay, Monty, throw out the NFL. College football. They're partners on college football.
Yeah.
You look at Major League Baseball. Who's got the Major League Baseball package? Well, Fox and ESPN. The only thing they don't partner on is NBA. And with the new NBA deal coming up, some believe that Fox will bid on it. We'll see. ESPN and Fox are partners on just about everything,
including college basketball,
auto racing, just about everything. They talk on a regular basis. And I continue to, and now people are confirming this, but who told you first? ESPN, Fox, CBS, NBC, they have regular calendar slated meetings where they communicate and they talk. And if you don't think that guys like Greg Sankey, Brett Yormark, Tony Petitti, Jim Phillips, these guys talk to their TV partners on a regular basis. When you renew a grant of rights or you expand and you add teams to your conference, you can't do that without opening up and amending your grant of rights.
Why do you think George Kliavkoff was such a problem?
there's this belief that TV is wanting to keep the status quo. TV doesn't want the status quo. TV wants what's good for TV. They want Caitlin Clark, right? They want big games and big matchups. They want 20 million people on average watching a college basketball game.
Yes.
So you have to understand, and I'm not saying, Dallin, you're wrong. The TV deal that they just signed does not mean that it's dead. And listen, Ross Dellinger is a hell of a lot better of a reporter than I am. I wholeheartedly disagree with him because people I talk to tell me to. They tell me, hey, it's not dead. It did not hurt our opportunity. The thing standing in the way is a bunch of dudes with huge egos. That's what's going to make this difficult to do. It's not the TV guys. The TV guys are going to get their money, period.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think the private money piece is so important because,
Yes.
again, it's not as the proposition isn't, ESPN and Fox and CBS and all these TV networks just continuing to pay more. The proposition is, figuring out how to balance the ecosystem because what you have at play now is the TV partners essentially funding athletics. And that is a very, there's a lot of risk in that situation. Whereas if you could have, private money coming in and providing stability for the P&L sheet for colleges and, a little bit for TV partners, that's going to really help the sport. And again, I always point this out. It would follow the NFL model. It would be, hey, Wild Card Weekend is brought to you by, this game is presented by, the coin toss is presented by. Like, do you ever stop and watch an NFL game and just take notice of how many things are monetized? Do you really think that's like an accident or not intentional? It's very intentional. The sport
I would agree with
needs
that.
that level of revenue to be able to continue to thrive. Because that's the difference between the NFL and college football. The NFL thrives every single year.
But I also think we need to understand that TV money is not just some pipeline of cash. And much to Dallin's point, I think that TV, ESPN, Fox, CBS, NBC, it's not just some endless well of cash that they can just keep handing out. The private money part of this is critical. That you have other money to fund this outside of TV money. Because I would agree the TV companies are not going to continue to just hand over more money because you asked them to. That's the part of this comment I agree with 100%. Money in the TV industry is not endless. But I think one of the things that is very clear here is ESPN and ABC are making a slobbering, huge 12-inch unit worth of cash
right
on college football. They're making a lot of money. It is profitable.
A lot.
You don't pay billions if you're not making tens of billions.
Yes.
You have to understand that. But they're not in the position that they're in as behemoths of industry because they make deals that lose them money. So that's why do you think that people are out trying to source private money and come in with frameworks that are built on top of private money in addition to TV money? Because I think the Pac-12 learned a very hard lesson and it cost them their lives. That money is not endless and you better have a value proposition.
So don't tell me the Super League's dead. Don't tell me that this concept and this conversation's dead because there's no way it's dead, dude.
And I also think that it's interesting that the different models, and I think we've talked about this for months and months, the different models of the Super League. I mean, you have to understand that months and months ago when people were like, oh, well, it's just going to be funded by TV, that was never going to work. And I think one of the other things that I think goes overlooked is this is why ESPN was pressing the college football playoff so hard to get the extension done.
Yeah.
because I think they knew as soon as that extension was done that they were going to regain control. They were going to have a lot more creative and monetary control over college football when that deal got done. And I think they do. And I think they've earned it because they perform. They perform. OG Gary, I'm here for the Super League. 72 teams, 9 teams of 8 divisions. I don't know that 72 is enough, and I think it might be too many. That's exactly what I just said. I think it's 70. It's 72. I mean, if you go to 48 teams, that's not nearly enough. That was the number that was originally floated. It's not nearly enough.
Right.
But once you get to 70, 84 teams, relegation, I don't know that relegation is a serious thing. I truly do not. I don't know how you make that work.
The discrepancy in talent is too much.
Yeah, it's very difficult. So I think that there's a lot of details that I think A, we don't know about, and B, that I don't know how you would work them out. But I think when you look at 72, I don't know that that's enough, but man, that's a lot of teams. That is a lot of teams. And if we're in an NFL model, which I again continue to hear that people are in favor of the NFL model. And I think they want a college football playoff championship on a Saturday and an NFL Super Bowl on a Sunday.
Man, why wouldn't we, right?
I think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see it. Mike Smith, lots of big egos involved that could make it difficult to iron out all the details. That's right. Eric and Raleigh, TBS is going to buy the College Football Super League and have the inside NBA guys do the studio show.
Well,
I think that's exactly right.
Why wouldn't they? I mean, we do that with everything else. Good Lord.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. RJC, man, I'll give you another chance. ACC has zero reason to negotiate with Florida State. Good to see you, my guy. Brandon Butler, the longer this takes, the less money ESPN, Fox, CBS don't have unlimited funds. They have to pay the pro sports leagues too. But I can tell you that these are all different departments. So if you have your NFL billions that are being paid to the NFL from ABC and ESPN, that is a different unit. There's a guy whose total job is to oversee the NFL at ESPN and ABC and execute the broadcast. Then there's a guy whose job is to monetize it. Like, you have all of this infrastructure for each one of their properties. So it is at the end of the day, it all comes out of Bob Iger's checking account at Disney. But I also think ESPN is also painfully aware that they have to fund their direct-to-consumer model in 2025. That's about 18 months away.
But make no mistake about it. ESPN's doing quite well.
They are doing well.
I don't want people to get this confused. Like, they all are separate departments, 100%, but they're all of the same mindset. Hey, if we're going to spend $1, we need to try to make 7 or 8 back. That's how you are profitable when you start building in, hey, got to pay Jimmy, got to pay Bob, got to pay Gary to do the broadcast and all these different things that you were just talking about. They got to pay staff. They got to pay the league. They got to pay all this stuff, but there's still 100%. Profitability there. Yep. And that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, they're not just going to continue to pay infinite money, but they know how to sell.
Totally agree.
So they'll always be able to make money.
Totally agree. 100%. Eric Wasikowski, the Super League denial from you 3 months ago was impressive. Go back and find it and tell me we denied it, Eric, but always average to see you as well. All pro sports are scripted. Yes, ESPN and Fox are partners for the majority of all sports, but all sports are scripted and rigged. Okay.
Are you the same guy that said the world was ending yesterday?
The NFL is rigged. What happened to the colors on the Super Bowl logo then? How'd that work out? 66 teams seems like a good number. Brandon Butler, the issue I have is that if you're not in your university is going to be cutting a lot of sports because ESPN isn't going to pay the MAC or the G5s when they have to pay the Super League. I think there are some unintended consequences that will result from this. There's no question about that.
But again, maybe those schools shouldn't be on ESPN. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. Yeah, maybe the tiny school that no one's ever heard of should be on a different network. And
But I also wonder how many kids are going to college because they love Clemson football. So they're going to Clemson. I think there's a lot of that. And I'm curious how many kids are going to Marshall because they love Marshall football.
yeah,
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know that about SMU. I don't know that about Lehigh. I don't know that about Hofstra. I don't know that about Boise State. Not sure about Fresno State. How many kids dream of going to Fresno State because David Carr went there? I don't know. But I think there's enough of a number where it will make a difference.
right.
And I do think that this is the Gonzaga basketball argument. This is the UConn football argument. Nobody wants to subsidize UConn football, or they'd be in a P5 right now. P4, excuse me. Rest in peace. I think it's a very relevant conversation. I think that's a very poignant comment. I agree. UW fan Jim, are the TV networks colluding to control the value of the deals and increase profits? Competition would do the opposite. I don't think that you can. I don't know if they're colluding, but how are you, Jimmy Pitaro at ESPN? And you're insulating yourself from your competition. You can't do that. It doesn't work. You have to, on some level, have a relationship, if only so that there is an open line of communication, so that you have a strategic understanding, so that you know where your competition's going. It's why Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey have this unholy alliance, right? It's why, because you're the two biggest behemoths in the room. You can crush each other, but you can also crush everyone else if you stick together. That's why you have relationships. I don't know that you, there would be no other reason. You probably don't want, if you're ESPN, do you want Fox to thrive? I actually think you do. Because what's good for one is good for the other.
Uh-huh.
If Fox NFL is suffering, do you really think that ESPN's better off for that? Because Fox going down the shithole doesn't mean that more people are watching ESPN, who only, I would remind you, has Monday Night Football in sporadic games in between. So are you telling me that ESPN and ABC want to see Fox fail? I don't think so. Are you telling me that Fox wants to see Sunday Night Football have nobody watch it? I don't think so. That would be bad for everybody.
Yeah.
It'd be bad for everybody. This is the argument about what Greg Sankey has been evangelizing for years, and I've tried to tell people, and people don't want to hear it. Oh, the NCAA's got to go away. They're the bastards of the world. Well, the problem is that your favorite university is a member of the NCAA and has been part of the process of putting themselves in these NIL jackpots. Right? Like, so this idea that, oh, there can be no regulation of college sports. Are you out of your mind? Have you thought through that? Oh, the NCAA is dying. The NCAA is dying financially because all of the member institutions, that means your favorite university, made bad decisions to try and screw kids.
Yes.
I mean, leave Penn State out of this, but they tried to screw kids and take their money from them.
Schemers trying to control their little worlds.
A bunch of old white rich dudes wanted to keep the young black kids down.
Yes.
And Ed O'Bannon had enough. That's where this comes from. So I would just encourage you to take your opinion and do some research on it and formulate an educated opinion. Because if you're rooting for the NCAA to die, Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State are going to be fine. Notre Dame's going to be fine. Can't say that about the lesser university. Can't say that about the girls' swim team. Can't say that about the track program or the cross-country team.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. And if you don't believe that these NIL lawsuits that are coming down the pipe are not truly an existential crisis, you're not informed. You're not informed. You are not informed. Because they're not colluding. Colluding would be, behind the scenes, under the table, let's screw college football.
Yeah.
No, they're openly talking and trying to figure out how to make more money and how to stave off the death of college athletics as we know it.
And there's a way to do it.
There is. I don't think there's any doubt. So if 72 is too much, then they'll have to cut 5 teams and go to 64. I don't have a firm grasp because everybody's got a different idea. There are some TV executives who will tell you they want 48 teams, period. That's it. 48's not enough. It's do the simple math in the P4. 48 ain't going to cut it. Not going to happen. I think there is a loud cry for people to miss the playoffs. That bowl eligibility number was a comparison used when I was talking to a certain individual. There are a lot of people in college athletics who don't want everybody to make the playoffs every year.
They shouldn't make the playoffs every year. That's why it's the playoffs.
One of the major fights is, well, we want to make sure that everybody in the Big Ten makes the playoffs. Well, cool, but we don't give out participation trophies. That's one of the major arguments.
Yeah.
So how many teams get into the Super League is a different conversation than how many teams make the playoffs.